right, live stream. The video live stream is good to go. Let me give you the green bean.
Woohoo! Feeling so beamy.
Right on. All right, do we have the stream going? Very good. Excellent. All right. Start pinging some people in. Mornings have been a lot slower lately, but everything's been slower on Clubhouse lately too. So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I feel like people getting sort of back to quote unquote normal schedules. They're finding it difficult to realign themselves with their previous schedules.
All right. Hey, Mike, how you doing? But real quick.
Hey, good morning. Good afternoon, guys.
Yeah. All right. We are going into the countdown. How you doing? Welcome to the Music News Power Hour on the Music Industry City Broadcast Network. And today we are going to talk about YouTube's $2 billion a month revenue. Red Hot Chili Peppers are selling their catalog, and there's even more acquisitions to discuss. Warner and Wave VR, and the Grammy changes. The Weeknd says it's an admission of corruption. Still not happy. So, plus your daily Spotify update. And it's Tuesday. My co-host Eli Window has the day off, but filling in, we have our UK correspondent. Angela has the green bean today, so if there's something you want to chime in about, feel free to raise your hand, and Angela can bring you up onto the stage. So we're going to get started in just a moment, but first, let's get to this day in history. And this is where we celebrate the passing of some and the births of others, and some interesting tidbits that we find. Well, I'm going to say the word interesting again. All right, in this day on May 4th, 2004, producer Clement Seymour died at the age of 72. He was a major force in the development of ska and reggae and made his first recordings of Bob Marley. On this day in May 2012, American rapper, musician, film director, and human rights activist and founding member of the hip-hop group Beastie Boys, Adam Yauch, died of cancer at the age of 47. Celebrating birthdays, we have the American rock guitarist Dick Dale, also known as the king of the surf guitar. We also have country star Randy Travis. And in 1972, American musician Mike Dirnt, bassist with Green Day. And on this day in 1979, Lance Bass, singer from the American boy band NSYNC. And this day in history, on May 4th, 1970, 4 students at Kent University were killed and 11 wounded by National Guard troops at a campus demonstration protesting the escalation of the Vietnam War. The incident inspired Neil Young to compose Ohio, which became a hit song for Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, and many other remix of it. This day in May 4th, 1997, Courtney Love placed an advert in the Seattle Times selling the house she had shared with Kurt Cobain. The 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom house was on the market for $3 million. And May 4th, 2000, Metallica were demanding online music service Napster cut off 335,000 users who they claimed had been illegally trading their songs. The band had passed on the names of all those they considered to be, quote, stealing their material over the internet in the latest development in an ongoing battle over the protection of music copyrights on the web. And also on this day in 2008, thieves broke into the childhood home of Motown star Martha Reeves and stole about $1 million worth of uninsured recording equipment, including speakers, microphones, and karaoke machines. A suspect was arrested at his home later in the day after he tried to sell the goods to a pawn shop for $400. I don't know about that for good thieving business practices, not knowing the value of what you're stealing, trying to get just $400 out of it, but they got caught. So
that's probably why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably not the brightest thieves, and many of them aren't. All right, so with that being said, we're going to get into the news just a second, but just so this is where we scour the World Wide Web for music business news that we think should be open for discussion. We're going to start that up really in a second with the reads. Feel free to say hi, and anybody out there in our video live stream, how you doing? Good to see you. And for anybody here in Clubhouse, if there's something you want to chime in about, or if there's a topic you want to bring to the table, feel free to raise your hand and we'll bring you on up to the stage. You might see our normal co-host Eli Window is off today, but Angela is filling in with the green bean moderating role. All right, and
I just want to say happy Star Wars Day to everybody. May the 4th be with you.
Right on. Yes, May the 4th. I just had to use somebody sent me an article earlier, and he's like, we're counting on you. Of course, I had to send back the Obi-Wan, you're my only hope. And with that being said, if you enjoy us, want to tune in more programming, all the network events, you can tap the greenhouse at the top or go to musicindustrycity.com and register for free. We also have all the articles, so the headlines and the links to all the articles that we cover, and that is in our show notes at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic, and that will lead you to the show notes document where you can follow along at home. All right, and with that being said, let's get to the news. All right, this is one start off with YouTube, and this one is in music business worldwide. YouTube is now generating $2 billion a month from ads and grew faster than Netflix in the first quarter of 2021. All right, the platform's latest revenue figures were revealed last week as part of the Q1 results of parent company Alphabet. They show that YouTube is now generating an average of over $2 billion every month from ads, and that's potentially on course to generate somewhere near to $30 billion across the course of this year. They also show that YouTube's ad business materially closed the gap on subscription-based Netflix revenues in Q1. And according to Alphabet's figures, YouTube generated over $6 billion from advertising the first 3 months to end the March of this year. That's up nearly $2 billion, or by 49%. They generated in the same period in 2020. If YouTube can maintain that 49% growth across the course of 2021, it will turn over more than $29 billion this year. It's really interesting to see, what they also lump in. It's that they're talking about the platform has significant subscription business, which includes those subscribing to its music service, YouTube Music, and its YouTube Premium tier, which encompasses subscription to YouTube Music. There wasn't an update on YouTube's global subscriber figure in Alphabet's Q1 results. The latest confirmation that Music Business Worldwide received for that number was the quarter ending September 2020, when Alphabet confirmed that YouTube Music and YouTube Premium shared more than 30 million paying subscribers and over 35 million, including those on free trials. YouTube Global Head of Music Lear Cohen confirmed in November that more than 2 billion logged-in YouTube users were now playing music on the service every month. A lot of people. And once again, if there is anything you want to chime in about, you want to jump up on the stage, or if you have something we want to bring to the table, feel free to raise your hand and we'll bring you on up. All right, and more catalog acquisitions. This has been something I think we might have to just start a weekly segment just to talk about catalog acquisitions. The Red Hot Chili Peppers selling their song catalog, and this is from Billboard. It starts out, the band is making a $140 million to $150 million deal with Hipgnosis, according to sources. Looks like Hipgnosis has won yet another big music publishing acquisition, pocketing the Red Hot Chili Peppers song catalog in a deal ranging from $140 million to $150 million, according to sources. It's unclear if the acquisition has closed yet, but sources say the firm has notched a deal, which likely includes the band's most popular songs. And the band members collectively write many of their songs, so it appears that a majority of them would have needed to agree to sell their shares of the rights to make this deal happen. According to BMI, the Red Hot Chili Peppers song catalog is administered by Mobile to Blame music under the guidance of lawyer Eric Greenspan. The Red Hot Chili Peppers song catalog generates $5 to $6 million in net publisher shares, usually known as gross profit, although in this case it's likely to include all revenue from the catalog, sources say, and it traded above 25 times multiple, which calculates to about 125 million to 150 million total. At deadline, Greenspan and Hypnosis couldn't be reached for comment. So this, goes on a little bit more there, but, once again, Hypnosis is on that buying spree, and in January, talks about Hypnosis sold nearly 62 million shares and raised about $104 million. And in another move on April 1st, Hypnosis converted from being a Guernsey-based company to becoming an investment trust. So there is a lot going on to pay attention to, and this is always really interesting to see how catalogs are getting bought up and sold and all of that. And speaking of acquisitions, this one is also from Billboard.com, and this is Square finalizes their Tidal acquisition. This deal was completed at $302 million, slightly higher than the $297 million announced in March. Financial service company Square completed its acquisition of a majority ownership stake in Tidal, the streaming service owned by Jay-Z and a consortium of artists, on Friday, April 30th. The deal was finalized for a total of $302 million, and under that arrangement, Jay-Z will join Square's board of directors, and Square executive Jesse Dorogusker will run the streaming service as its interim leader. Square will soon begin its search for a permanent head of Tidal, but Dorogusker should provide a stable hand to lead the streaming service forward. He previously led the development of a ubiquitous Square reader and led the team that launched Apple's Lightning connector during his time at the tech company. In an interview with Billboard after the acquisition, said, "We're especially interested in creating new adjacent opportunities in service of the whole artist experience and their experience with the fans in addition to the streaming service." Continues, "That could be more about creating new markets like Square did in the early days. We were serving customers that were largely underserved and created a market. We see millions of entrepreneurs, artists, musicians in the world who are underserved." It goes on, Tidal will be run as an independent business under the Square umbrella, and Square will keep the management team and current employees in place as it moves forward. In addition, the initial set of artists with ownership stakes in Tidal, a list that includes names like Beyonce, Madonna, Daft Punk, Deadmau5, and Lil Wayne, will also keep their stakes in Tidal. So this is, really interesting. It's like, the thought they were saying that looking at new markets, I have a question. Basically, what do they mean by new markets? Like Square, as a financial platform, would be difficult to get into other countries due to regulations. But for the most part, you can really get music everywhere for the most part these days, almost everywhere. And there's a streaming platform somewhere for music. So I'm not quite, I would like to see what they mean by expanding into new markets.
Can I comment now or later?
Sure, certainly, Destiny.
Yeah, I'm interested in what that means as well, in terms of new markets, because before this acquisition, Tidal was very popular within the Black community because of the Black ownership, and I know that even people in my circle have canceled their subscriptions because it's no longer majority Black owned, and so I wonder if I wonder like how subscriptions are going to be affected by this, because for me, the uphands of Tidal was because it was Black owned, and then the second one because it was a higher quality of streaming that Spotify announced yesterday that they are adding to their service. So now it's just like, well, what do we need Tidal for? But and then to your point about streaming being everywhere, but so I wonder why like Spotify isn't in Africa, if that makes sense. I don't know if they're still not there, but like that's been a thing that I've been hearing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like, we talk about markets and it's like, what do they mean? Like Tidal's not in all the markets, so they want to get into new markets. But, it's kind of like, what are they going to do in those markets? Is it just opening up the doors, or are they going, because they say underserved. So are they going to offer specials or deals or rates or something to underserved markets.
Is Spotify available in China? Because that may be an avenue that they're looking to pursue, especially if they team up with TikTok eventually or other Chinese-owned businesses, because obviously music can be regulated if you know how to use the right metadata. So they may be looking into making a streaming service that goes along with TikTok, or that it would be approved by the Chinese government.
I think this is going to be one of those wait and see and see how this all works out. We can pick this back up more in a little bit. I just want to get onto that. So thank you, Destiny. Again, if anybody else wants to jump in, has any comments, reactions, feel free to raise your hand. This one going along with more mergers, acquisitions. This one I am a fan of, and this is for anybody else that maybe has podcasted or for the producer in them. And this was from the Pro Sound Network. Audacity, the long-running open-source cross-platform audio editor, has been acquired by Muse Group. And they're saying, founded in 1999, the free software program has been downloaded more than 100 million times to date. In partnership with Audacity's online open source community, the new owners will be looking to expand the software's feature set and update its ease of use. Dedicated designers and developers will be tasked to work on the software, but Audacity will remain free and open source. And we like to hear that. All right, shepherding Audacity will be Martin Akiri, recruited based on his efforts running MuseScore, an open source music notation software that is also owned by Muse Group. Kiri will oversee both brands. In a wide-ranging YouTube video, he details the history of Audacity. He noted that he'll be interviewing users and creating online spaces to interact with those users in an effort to determine priorities and approaches to the program's development going forward. He noted the company that will pre-publish designs and updates so users can comment before widespread implementation, taking advantage of the open source's transparency. So, some of the early priorities for anybody that has done this, I won't spend too much time on this, but it's, some of the additions they're talking about is non-destructive stackable VST effects, as well as user experience updates with the aim of making features easier to find and use, such as also things like 3D spectral editing prototype. So, and, if developed, it could possibly offer haptic spectral editing via a haptic glove. With these and others in mind, Muse Group will be looking to hire a number of senior developers and designers with experience in audio and music technology. So, the Muse Group is pretty new itself, having only opened its doors April 26, 2021. And they own the brands Ultimate Gear, MuseClass, ToneBridge, and MuseScore, which together reach more than 350 million users in over 60 countries. So it's, I'm a fan of it. I thought this was really good to hear. I'm a big fan of open source. People who also maybe live stream on OBS, that's an open source platform. And it's, I know many that have used Audacity, and I've used it for many things, and it's a great tool.
Mike?
Yeah, I wanted to say something about this. James Cridland at podnews.net pointed out yesterday on this piece of news that, being an open source software, it can't really be acquired, and anybody has the same thing that in theory Muse is acquiring here. What they might be acquiring is the copyright to the name Audacity, but beyond that, it kind of seems like a bit of a head fake.
Could it be related to ad sales? Because I know a lot of Muse Group's properties sell ads and have the right to place ads around it. So I don't know. I haven't used Audacity. I've used some of Muse Group's properties, but I haven't used Audacity. But would there be space, or is there a possibility that it could just be for the purposes of being able to sell advertising around it?
I guess I don't know. Maybe they're going to reskin it and add feature sets to it that aren't going to be available elsewhere. Although I don't know how that would work with the open source nature of the project. That's above my head. I don't know.
That is really interesting. So say OBS. So OBS couldn't never really be sold, then that's maybe why Streamlabs OBS exists, due to the extent that they just took the OBS platform and built it on their own.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's something I'll dig into a little bit further and try to report back on tomorrow here.
Okay. So, I have a slight issue here. If you can just talk about something for 30 seconds, I just lost my feed. Can somebody pick up a topic for 30 seconds? Add on to this. I'll be right back.
I think now would be a great time, as Eli does most days, to check on the weather. Wouldn't you agree, Peter? That's my best Eli impersonation. Obviously, we're all in different places, so check out the weather where you are by going to the nearest window, opening it up, and sticking your head out. Of course, if you happen to be on a train at this very moment, we advise that you don't do that. But I can tell you right now that the weather in the UK is cloudy and windy and rainy and not very May. But as it is Star Wars Day, hopefully somewhere in the sky, the weather is pleasant. Back to you, Peter.
Thank you for that. All right. Yeah, that's when Eli's really helps me out. I'm like, and in the video stream, I'll be pointing. I'm like, like the other day, my monitor fell over. Nobody here knows that. My monitor kind of fell over, and luckily the cables were tight that it caught it. And I had to run, and she's like texting me because she didn't see me on the camera. She's like, everything okay? She could see the camera wobbling. So thank you for that. Always something a little interesting and some technical stuff as we try to do Clubhouse and video live streaming and all that stuff. So, but that is an excellent weather report. And yes, please do not stick your head out the window of a moving train. With that being said, we're going to go over to Hypebot. And once again, you can follow along with any of these articles, the headlines. We have them in our show notes at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic, and that'll take you to the show notes with all the links. This one, SBA says the shuttered venue operating grant funds for desperate venues. No funds for desperate venues before late May. The SBA now says that no shuttered venue operating grants, the SVOG, funds would be awarded to desperate independent venues, promoters, and agents before the end of May. In December, more than $16 billion was earmarked by the U.S. Congress and signed into law to help the independent live sector devastated by a year of COVID-caused shutdowns. But on Monday night, the SBA messaged applicants that it, quote, anticipates SVOG's awards will start in late May, 5 months after Congress approved the funds and 6 weeks after the first application received. In the first 24 hours, more than 17,000 began the SVOG application process. And sometimes, I have to call it out when They misspelled COVID. They called it COVID. It's like, and they also had some other typos in here. So I was trying to read, and it was like I was stumbling through that one. But yeah, unfortunately, it's going to take a little time. I think COVID
is actually a better name for it.
Yeah,
it feels more like what it is.
We just call it COVID. All right. Since we are, in the virtual world, Warner has been, we hear a lot with Sony. We hear a lot with Warner. We hear a lot with all these companies getting to the metaverse. And this one from Music Business Worldwide. Warner Music Group buys stake in virtual concerts platform Wave. So their investment into non-traditional areas of the music business, especially the so-called online metaverse, isn't slowing down. On Friday, Warner announced its investment into the tech company Jenny's to develop avatars and create NFTs for Warner artists. That came 3 months after Warner pumped an 8-figure sum into social gaming platform Roblox, having already invested in virtual artist record label Spirit Bomb. And on May 3rd, Warner has cranked the strategy up a couple notches. This time, it's invested in Wave, the virtual concerts platform that has previously attracted investment from the likes of Tencent, Scooter Braun, and Justin Bieber, The Weeknd, and Twitch co-founder Kevin Lin. Warner hasn't confirmed the dollar amount it's invested in Wave, but it has taken a minority equity position in the company as a result. Los Angeles-based Wave blends broadcast technology and real-time gaming graphics to transform artists into digital avatars in a future world, which they can play live-streamed concerts for fans to watch and interact with. Warner said that Wave will, quote, develop virtual performances, experiences, and monetization opportunities for its artists, including new forms of ticketing, sponsorship, and in-show interactions for the fans. It added through Wave, Warner will be able to forge more powerful artist activations, incorporating new and fan-favorite features into their shows to fuel audience engagement. Adam Arrigo, the CEO and co-founder of Wave, said, quote, Warner has, WMG has an incredible history of being a trailblazer in the music industry. They share our vision. We're pulling the future forward using these new technologies that benefits artists and fans alike. And we're excited to partner with them to create interactive events that are unlike any other virtual concerts ever experienced. And Juan Alexandra from Warner Music Group says, the commercial opportunity in the metaverse has exploded in the last several years, with the past few months seeing a tipping point for mainstream adoption of immersive social experiences and virtual communities. So this is really I like this. Wave used to have like Wave VR, which was through Steam, and anyone could be on that platform. And I know many of the world people, DJs, especially musicians, that were creating these fantastic worlds and experiences. And it was still in beta, and they did shut it down because, and we were a little bummed out when we heard it. We were a lot bummed out when we heard Wave was shutting down that platform, but it was moving over to something like this. And that was probably about 6 months ago that they were shutting down and that moving over. So now it's just starting to come to fruition what they are doing. So this is really interesting to see. I'd like to see what they're going to do more of.
This is really an interesting space. We've been talking about in this room too about the about Veep, which is the sort of venue specific live streaming option. So I love how these different companies are exploring the model of a hybrid. Attend the show. We want you to be there, but when you can't be there because you live far away or the show's sold out, here's this other really cool immersive opportunity to take part in it. And you can either do it from the VR standpoint, like it's been described here, or from a sort of a live stream lower fi version. It's really quite an innovative time.
Did you know Music Industry City has a metaverse, a virtual city?
No, Peter, tell us about it.
Oh, we have a metaverse, and you don't have to put on headset. So you can actually everybody.
I've been there.
Yes, Mike, we've had meetings in there. I've had record release parties in there, and people can go hang out at any time. It's always open. And if you just point your browser, and everybody write this down or type it in your browser right now, it's framevr.io. So that's FRAMEVR.io/Music Industry City. It's all in beta. The platform's in beta. This is WebXR, so you can access it from your web browser. Sometimes the iPhone still doesn't work because it is beta, but you get to see a virtual city. We have a stage. We have people hanging out. You can press a button that says personal buzzer, and that'll send me a text message saying you're there, and I could pop in, and people can just get together. You can be an avatar. You can share your screen, and so we're building out this whole metaverse that everybody can do. We're going to start doing networking meetings in there and get-togethers. So.
That's awesome. I'm sorry, I was playing the part of no. Tell us all about it.
Tell me more. But wait, there's more. And speaking of technology, let's go over to talk about the platform that we are currently on right now. And this is from Gizmodo. It says Clubhouse is losing steam. And this article kicks off Clubhouse, the company that was making headlines just a few months back for drawing major celebrities. And we've all seen Elon Musk seems to have reached a tipping point. In April, the app reached a grand total of 922,000 downloads. New research found a sharp downturn after bringing in millions of new users just a month earlier. These numbers come from the analytics firm Sensor Tower, which had previously pointed out the app's been on a downward slope for months. In January, Clubhouse hit 2 million downloads. In February, the app shot past 9.5 million downloads, but dipped back down to about 2.7 million in March, according to the firm's count. Now, it has fallen short of 1 million downloads per month for April, a low that we haven't seen since December of last year. There are all sorts of reasons, they opine here, that those numbers might be on decline. Some have theorized that the audio-only app, which remains exclusively for iOS, was a smash hit over the pandemic simply because so many of us were starved for conversation with other people. With vaccination numbers skyrocketing across the U.S. and people actually beginning to leave their houses for the first time in God knows how long, there's a chance that Clubhouse is simply a pandemic-era fad. There's also the fact that high-profile competitors like Facebook, Twitter, Spotify collectively jumped onto the social audio train in an attempt to court Clubhouse's user base. On Monday, for example, Twitter formally rolled out its own Clubhouse competitor Spaces to all Android and iOS users who have 600 followers or more. I'm going to read that article just right after this. But, they're talking about here, the company announced on Sunday that they're testing an Android version of its app with a handful of, quote, friendly testers outside the company. Even though there isn't a way for the broader Android community to sign up for the app right now, Clubhouse explained in its release notes that it plans to welcome these users to the platform over the coming weeks. So, I think we've all seen a little change in behavior, listening behavior, attendance, all across the board here. I thank you all for coming and hanging out with us during the News Power Hour.
I think it's going to come in waves. It's going to ebb and flow a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think seasonally too that may have changed. I mean, a lot of us in the West are starting to. I mean, not today, as evidenced by the weather report earlier, but a lot of us are going to be out and about more because simply the weather is better. When we were all holed up inside in the winter, it was a lot easier to have a meeting or a get together with people on Clubhouse than it was to physically go and get coffee, even if we were allowed to do it. So I think it's going to find its home. And a lot of people too, I know a lot of people signed up for the purposes of just giving it a try. And it takes a creative mind like all of us in this room, listening and speaking, to figure out how to make it work for you and figure out how to get the most out of it. And so for some people, it maybe doesn't translate for their business, or it isn't worth their time as much as it would be to be in a physical space or in one that has a visual element. So, I think it's gonna all come out in the wash eventually, and people will find its primary use. And although I don't know, I do want to make the point that I don't know anyone who has said, oh, I started on Clubhouse, but since Twitter or Facebook or any of these others have rolled out an option that's far better for me, I'm going over there. I haven't heard a lot of migration.
I haven't heard a lot of it, but I have heard it and I have seen it. And
interesting. I co-hosted a room on Sunday night that hosted Bill Burr, and over the course of the hour that he was there, about 15,000 people came through the room. But at any one time, I think we had a max of about 3,000 or something like that. But it was and then the app was buzzing afterwards with like the after show rooms and so forth. But I have to say, it didn't feel nearly as buzzy as when some of the other big celebrities have come on the app. And so I wonder if it's dispersion to the other platforms.
There is some that's people are still, but with the thing with the other platforms is that they all are slightly different, and it's how you would use it and your type of audience. So if people are popular on Twitter, actually, something, would you mind if I just read the Twitter article really quick? So I just want, so we can tie it all together. This was in TechCrunch, and Twitter expands Spaces to anyone with 600 plus followers and details plans for tickets, reminders, and more. And so Twitter Spaces, the company's new live audio rooms feature, is opening up more broadly. The company announced today it's making Twitter Spaces available to any account with 600 followers or more, including both iOS and Android users. It also officially unveiled some of the key features it's preparing to launch, like ticketed spaces, scheduling features, reminders, support for co-hosting, accessibility improvements, and more. Along with the expansion, Twitter is making Spaces more visible on its platform too. The company notes it begun testing the ability to find and join a space from the purple bubble around somebody's profile picture and the home timeline. Twitter says it decided on the 600 follower figure being the minimum to gain access to Twitter Spaces based on its earlier testing. Accounts with 600 or more followers tend to have, quote, a good experience hosting live conversations because they have a larger existing audience who can tune in. However, Twitter says it's still planning to bring Spaces to all users in the future. In the meantime, it's speeding ahead with new features and developments. Twitter has been building Spaces in public, taking into consideration user feedback as it prioritizes features and updates. And now it has an expanded set of audio management controls, introduced a way for hosts to mute all speakers at once, and they added a laughing emoji. All right, so there's also going to be support coming from multiple co-hosts, and creators will be able to market and even charge for access to their live events on Twitter Spaces. One feature arriving in the next few weeks will allow users to schedule and set reminders about spaces they don't want to miss. This can also help creators who are marketing their event in advance. As part of the RSVP process, could involve pushing users to set a reminder about the upcoming show. And Twitter, so Twitter Spaces rival Clubhouse, the one we're on right now, also just announced a reminders feature during its town hall event on Sunday, as well as the start of its external Android testing. The two platforms could seem be neck to neck in terms of feature set. So there, it goes on a little bit more. It's so to tie this all together, okay. Each platform is going to be different. You come onto people came onto Clubhouse, you created a whole new set of friends, colleagues, community. And, that was one of the things that was very attractive about it. And you ended up meeting and talking to people that you might have not spoken to in a while. On Twitter, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be for more new discovery, but it's going to be able to have conversations with your existing fan base or user base or followers, whatever you want to describe them as. But it's not like going to be really opening and like a feed like Clubhouse where you can just scroll a feed. So Twitter, if you already have a following, then you're you're already speaking to them, more of a vocal on what you kind of post a tweet about in the first place. So there's already a connection there. Would you want to be on Twitter and say, hey, come over and hang out with me on Clubhouse? Or if you could do that and just say instead of promoting on Twitter to go to Clubhouse, you promote on Twitter that you're on Twitter.
I feel like Twitter has opened itself up to so much trolling because of the process for becoming a user. I mean, you could, in theory, just be looking at Twitter and not actually even have an identity on it and participate. Whereas even then signing up for a profile and being able to interact, you only have to have an email address. There's not a lot of vetting process. Whereas with Clubhouse, from the start, you had to have the person's phone number that you were inviting. It also links you to that person as the person who was nominated. So you kind of pick and choose who you chose to link your identity with, because it can all come back to you if they become a jerk on the platform. And with Clubhouse, you can kind of, not that I would say you can pick and choose who's in a room with you, but you do sort of have some control over it if you're a moderator. Whereas the way that I see this sort of Twitter one, it's kind of more like with Clubhouse is a big house party that your friends invited you to. The Twitter one seems more like a public park where everybody can sort of turn up as long as they follow you or as long as they see you over there with a picnic basket. It just seems a little bit too, it's a bit too open for me. I think I'll stay right here for the moment.
I agree, Angela. I find it very problematic in actually the sense, the knowledge that Twitter is doing this is just it's a major turnoff because number one, I mean, here I agree with, it's like a house party of a friend and everybody's invited based on the vetting process. But with Twitter, I mean, I feel like it's already opening up a can of worms with faceless bots that can easily just manifest over 1,000 followers or so, and then next thing you know, you're being bombarded by infomercials and scams and all that stuff. So I totally I prefer now. I prefer not. Count me out on that.
Yeah, I feel like each of the different platforms has a specific utility. Like Twitter, I get my news, and Facebook, I keep in touch with people, and in Clubhouse, I'm being part of a conversation. And I don't personally, maybe I'm just one of the olds, but I don't think I need to combine all those things into one app. You know what I mean?
And don't forget, Discord also has created a sort of a voice and audio chat utility, and I think that part is built in. And from its platform, there's more of a gamer conversation going on there, a techie conversation going on there. You don't usually stumble upon someone's Discord. It's like an invite process, and it kind of keeps the circle a little bit closer. So there's sort of pockets of this, and I have participated in a Discord chat, but again, it was an already established community around a very specific topic, not like Clubhouse where I can sort of browse topics and pop in and out with no obligation, as opposed to a sort of timed specific event with a specific closed group of people having a conversation around a specific topic. I feel like they all have their place, and we'll see who gravitates towards what, once they're all, properly rolled out.
You have fireside chat. You have, like you said, Discord, Reddit, Slack, LinkedIn. There's a few more that are out there. It's going to really be interesting to see how it washes out and kind of just settles. So it's going to, it's going to take a year to see any kind of winners or losers. We'll probably see some fall to the wayside right away. I mean, the Facebook one, Facebook kind of technically, Instagram's the other one. They're saying, oh, now it's a Clubhouse because basically you can have the Instagram chats, group chats, which you've been able to do. Now you can turn the video off and you have Clubhouse on Instagram. It's like, is that where they're going with? Because are people really going to use Instagram like Clubhouse? I highly doubt that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the way Instagram started, I mean, look at the original logo. It was like an old school Polaroid camera. The idea was you're taking pictures. You don't need to, a picture says 1,000 words. So if their ethos originally was share your pictures and tell your story through your pictures, if the whole point is then turn off the pictures, I mean, how far are they going to stray from their brand before they become something else?
Yeah, and that's, it's what happens when Facebook sees something great, buys it, and says, okay, now we're going to change it. That's the typical tech life cycle. All right. With that being said, we got just a few more articles left. And again, if anybody wants to come on up, we're going to open up the roundtable in just a moment. If there's anything that we missed or you want to chime in about, just feel free to raise your hand and we'll bring you on up. And this one is in Billboard. And once again, you can go to, if you want to follow along with all the articles that we talk about through the week, that is at musicindustrycity.com, and just click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic, and that'll take you to the show notes. This one, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It is very interesting reading this on Billboard. It's all your questions about the end of the Grammy nomination review committees are answered. It's an analysis. Because we discussed this yesterday, and it was, we talk about, the reviewing the nomination review committees. It's disbanding some of them. So they were saying, how will this affect the Grammy nominations? And what this person is saying is, like, we can probably expect fewer shockaroos, as they said, both in terms of omitting records that have met all the usual criteria and still weren't nominated, including records that had barely registered. This past year, the Weeknd's failure to receive a single nomination made the most headlines, but nearly as surprising was Harry Styles' failure to land a nomination in any of the big three categories: album, record, and song of the year. For most of the Grammy history, The Weeknd and Styles would have been automatic Grammy nominees in the top categories, not just because they had huge commercial success, but they also because they made great records that represented a meaningful advance in their careers. They did everything right and still didn't get nominated in the top categories. Meanwhile, two of the Album of the Year nominees barely made a blip on the Billboard 200. Black Puma's Deluxe Edition peaked at number 200 by the time of the nominations, got as high as number 86 after the awards, and Jacob Collier's Zest Volume 3 didn't chart at all. The committee seemed to see its mission, at least in part, as championing new and worthy artists. That's not unreasonable. Everyone who had the slightest interest in popular music have heard The Weeknd's Blinding Lights countless times. You can picture some committee members saying, quote, why not give that slot instead to a quality act that could really use the boost? The counter argument is that isn't the Grammys' primary role to break an artist or play tastemaker? When you have multiple agendas, your central purpose can get muddled. That's the big takeaway, is, to look at the Grammys, and maybe that is part of the confusion and the issue. Is it about breaking artists, or is it to celebrate, like career moves or like the top artists? That's what they're trying to figure out, and they have to kind of figure that out, is what their mission. So they're talking about, did they see this decision as a good thing? Why did the Grammys institute nominations review committees in the first place? So there's a history of this, and it goes through, and there's something really interesting that I found in this article was they were looking at some of the areas when before the committees and when it was different years ago, and that they did get a lot of things right, but some of the misfires were completely so off. That is what the biggest, I guess, gap is, what the confusion of the committee. So This is really interesting for anybody that's been following along with this. And to tie this in is on Consequence of Sound. The Weeknd calls Grammy rule changes, quote, admission of corruption. And it starts off, he will continue his boycott despite the Recording Academies making many of the rule changes for which he's been advocating for. The Weeknd is not satisfied with the Recording Academy's decision to eliminate almost all secret committees responsible for nominating artists for the Grammy Awards, despite calling for that very change in March. He's doubling down on the Grammy critiques, telling Variety that the rule changes are an, quote, admission of corruption. His crusade against the Recording Academy actually began last year when he was shut out of all the Grammy categories, despite releasing one of the most critically lauded, commercially successful albums of 2022. His rhetoric escalated in March when he announced his Grammy boycott, explaining, quote, because of the secret committees, I will no longer allow my label to submit my music to the Grammys. Well, the Grammys did away with just about all the secret committees last week, came in for a small number of craft categories, but opening everything else to a straightforward peer-to-peer vote. Might have been meant as an olive branch to Weeknd, but Tefe has declined the gesture. Quote, I think the industry and public alike need to see the transparent system truly at play for the win to be celebrated, but it's an important start. I remain uninterested in being part of the Grammys, especially with their own admission of corruption for all these decades. I will not be submitting in the future. The article continues, to be clear, the Recording Academy did not admit to decades of corruption. The nominating committees began in 1989 as a group of experts dedicated to the classical and later jazz musical categories. But in 1995, after the Grammys voters embarrassed the Academy by nominating the three tenors and Tony Bennett for Album of the Year while snubbing all hip-hop and grunge artists, the Academy greatly expanded the use of these committees, hoping a select group of experts would be an improvement on the mostly old and extremely white voter base. All right, so it's he's goes on a little bit more in this article here. He said he did call it important. He doesn't think the Academy deserves any benefit of the doubt. Quote, the trust has been broken for so long between the Grammy organization and artists that it would be unwise to raise a victory flag. For now, he's turned his attention to charitable work. Quote, the industry can keep stepping up to share the revenue to help those in need in various situations and to support the marginalized communities who create and buy the music they sell. We have seen some movement there, and I expect to and encourage even more. I care about making music that people love and helping where I can. Right now, my concern is what's happening in my home country of Ethiopia, and encourage people to be aware of what's happening and donate where they can. Anybody have any thoughts of what's been going on with the Grammys and their changes and Weeknd's response?
I have a really unpopular opinion in this area, so I will yield for the moment, but I certainly am willing to share my unpopular opinion once everyone else has had a chance to speak.
Lawrence, you raised your hand. Is there something you wanted to jump in about on this?
Yeah, I've been sort of thinking about this a lot, about the changes that happened on Friday with the Grammy rules and everything. And I sort of come on the side that it's ultimately kind of a positive thing, because it sort of democratizes the process. And there was always a bit of, I wonder how much influence that the Weeknd sort of complaining about not, being nominated. I feel like that may have had some influence on this decision, because I think part of his complaint was that there's kind of a mysterious betting that happens, when the committee sort of gets involved, that may not be totally democratic, as far as just being decided by the Grammy voting committee. I'm sorry, by the voting community at large, which is about 12,000 people. So I feel like ultimately it sort of democratizes the process and makes it more transparent, which I think is always a good thing. So ultimately, I think I come down as being pro these changes.
Right on. Before I get to Angela's, what she claims is her unpopular opinion, I I think the Weeknd. I mean, the Grammys have been, the Recording Academy has been under fire, and they are making changes. So there is a lot going on, diversity, inclusiveness, and everything there. One of the things when the Weeknd made those announcements, I mean, you're talking about a fan base, and you're also talking about the Grammy Awards that's been out of touch. And when you look at for the last decade of the peak, there was a weird spike in 2012, about 39 million viewers, but that was like 13 more million viewers than the year before. So it was just like it was an outlier. But in 2010, 25.8, 2011 was 26.5 million. So it was balanced out for about 2015. And then it started collapsing. 2017, 26 million. And then in 2018 was 19.8. 2020, 18.7. 2021, 8.8. Now, we always have to put an asterisk, during, events that occurred during quarantine. But it's also a televised event to the extent that, well, people weren't going to be interested in the production, or they weren't going to be able to see a live audience. But also there's the cutting the cord and losing out generations of potential viewers. But when you have somebody like The Weeknd say, I'm, boycotting the Grammys, you're going to have a lot of fans saying F the Grammys. And then that conversation builds. It's like, yeah, why do we want to watch this? Because if The Weeknd gets shut out, they have their opinions, then they're not going to tune in. So I don't believe 10 million viewer drop-offs has that much some of the lockdown has an effect on that. 10 million doesn't have an effect. That much of effect.
Yeah, I think the Academy Awards was also, it was
They're
also
out of touch.
very, very much down, so the Oscars also was very much down this year as well. I think there's a combination of factors, like it's maybe partly the pandemic, partly just these awards shows in general seems very kind of old fashioned unless they sort of reinvent themselves. There's so many other there's so many other forms of entertainment that are getting people's attention these days, that sitting down for a 3-hour awards show may not be your best entertainment option.
I'd rather be on Clubhouse listening to a conversation about NFTs than watching the Grammys. With that said, thanks, Lawrence. Angela, what is as we are starting to round the final 7 minutes of the program? Angela, what is what you consider your unpopular opinion?
I'm starting to think, based on this conversation, it's not unpopular. I mean, this is not to diminish anybody that's won a Grammy or been nominated for a Grammy. I know some of you are maybe in this room or all over Clubhouse. Some of my good friends have won Grammys. I'm done with the Grammys. I think the concept as a whole, where one artist is given, has won the sort of named award of being the best of that genre or the best of that year, just seems like nonsense. It's sort of in a world where we have so many different genres and styles and ways of innovating and performance ability. Picking one person out of a group of 5 for each of some really more or less arbitrary categories just seems like a pointless popularity contest to me. And coming from the indie world that I come from, so many artists who are indie artists could be putting out extraordinary works and not given the opportunity to even put their music forward, because in fairness, they're the sort of outside shots, long shot, if you will. Anyway, so I would prefer it. I mean, if Ken Ehrlich really has to sort of tout everybody out, and the best parts of the Grammys aren't, and the winner is, the best parts are, look at that amazing collaboration. Look at those two people that would never be in the same room together doing a performance, and they've brought them together. Look at that tribute that they paid to that artist that's beloved. I don't remember who wins most of the time. I remember what I witnessed and what I took away from it. I would rather they did a celebration at the end of every year, at the beginning of every year, of all of the music that was released, and invite every artist who had, some sort of groundbreaking or unusual or recurringly amazing work to come and play a song, or maybe collaborate with someone else. Maybe have it more often, maybe have it 2 or 3 times a year, every quarter, even show a variety show of it so that people got exposed to it in a way that was a bit more inclusive and less, and the winner is. That's just me.
But people really like awards.
I know. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah. All right. We just have about 4 minutes left, so I just want to make sure we get all final thoughts. And Noah, good. You had something you want to chime in really quick on the topic?
Oh yeah, no worries. I was just saying that I agree completely, because like I think we're at a time where the whole competition thing is kind of getting dated, and it is better to celebrate what people have achieved and done. I feel like that's happening here on Clubhouses and Rooms, and that's why I think it's really cool. And yeah, so I absolutely agree with that. As a musician, it's more about celebrating what people have done rather than be like, oh, and the winner is, and all that. I absolutely agree.
All right. Thank you for that. All right. We're down to 3.5 minutes. I just want to get final thoughts. This is where we just run the room. Everybody just shouts out a sentence or two, final or quick final thoughts. And Tyler, any thoughts? Lawrence, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just to go up from what Angela was saying, I think, ultimately the Grammys are kind of a promotional opportunity for music that happens to have awards attached to it. And I feel like ultimately it's a good thing for the music industry to have, because for at least a moment, a lot of the news is about, about music. So it promotes kind of music in general, and it just happens to have these awards attached to it, which is like, kind of often a little bit silly for things that are artistic or aesthetic. So I get it.
Grammy Awards, it's a television program with a contract that gets a lot of sponsorship dollars, and therefore you need viewers. Elliot.
I'm just going to say happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you.
Right on. Rasan.
To round out the last of the Grammy talk, I think a major thing that would really propel the Grammys into the 21st century is to get off of CBS and just open up the airwaves to everybody. Put it online. Just do all that, because all the viewers are there. That's it.
Go where the cool kids are, the viewers, because
put it on Clubhouse.
There you go. Destiny.
The clubby.
Destiny, final thoughts.
This goes for any award show. If you're not incorporating my favorite artist, then I'm not watching. Period.
Right on. Mike?
Nada.
Thanks, Mike. Excellent. Angela?
I just want to put a plug in for Royal Blood, who released an amazing record at the end of last week that I cannot stop listening to, that will probably not be recognized by the Grammys, but who cares, because I love it. So give it a listen if you're looking for something new and badass.
And are we supposed to play anything else?
Mario Kart, of course.
Mario Kart. There it is. Play Mario Kart. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We do this every Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. It is the Music News Power Hour, so that's why we stick to 1 hour. If you'd like to find out more, you can go register for free at musicindustrycity.com. Just sign up. It takes 2 seconds. You also get information about all these other events that we do. We do stuff outside of Clubhouse. Yeah, we do. We've been doing it before Clubhouse, and we're going to continue going with video live streams. We actually live stream this as well. And we do stuff in VR. We have the metaverse. If you go to framevr.io, again, that's framevr.io/Music Industry City, you can actually see what the Music Industry City looks like in a virtual world, and you can hang out and run around in it. We're going to be doing some networking events in there very shortly, so make sure you sign up for that newsletter. And also the show notes here are at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the Clubhouse Information Center, and you'll get the links to everything. And once again, thank you, Angela, for filling in, our UK correspondent, filling in for Eli, who will be back tomorrow, but Angela is also going to be back tomorrow. So everybody give it up for Angela. Yeah. And with that being said, we are out of here. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.